Hello everyone, it's Dr. G. I hope you're fantastic today. The topic for today is putting together a content strategy or a content plan for your integrated marketing communications. And I wanted to dig into this topic a little bit because we do so much of our communication and marketing through digital channels. And a really good marketing organization will put structure around that. Not only because it's important to align all of your communications to your brand, as we know that is the goal of integrated marketing communications, but it's important to be able to wrangle all of those pieces of content that you have and have some sort of structure that allows you to be able to know which pieces of content are successful and those that probably you shouldn't spend much of your time doing in the future. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now there's the big points that I want to cover in this short video is developing strategies for your planning, particularly in content management, discovering the things or the steps that you will need to do to create a good content plan, create organization strategies. So I'm going to show you a number of different ways of organizing your content that I've used in my career. Some are great, some are cumbersome, but I think it will be important for you to understand the complexity of putting all of this content together. And then discovering some best practices from other organizations and how they manage their content. So let's start off with, first of all, planning. Now there's a lot of different ways that you can approach how you are going to manage the content. And content really is all of the pieces of information that you are going to communicate within your various channels. It's a little bit deeper than your overall integrated marketing plan with your promotions area and your public relations. This really is about the nitty-gritty creative content and messages that you're going to create. So typically you are going to have at least one person in your organization managing this content. Now, I've worked in organizations that may be a bit larger than what you might be working with now, or maybe in the future you will work with an organization. I worked for a large company, well, sort of large. It was Fortune 500, but it wasn't, Fortune 50. And in this particular company, I had 2 full-time staff who did content creation or content curation. And I'll talk about the differences in those in a bit. So think of Deb being one person, a content manager who really did create the overall strategy, and Trevor who worked on the development and the curation of those content pieces. So they were very busy people, and their job was to create the strategy and manage the content, and then figure out what's working, what's not, and how can we use this content not only to leverage our brand, but to nudge people into the sales, which is what we really want to do in marketing, right? We don't get paid for just creating pretty things. So planning in that is you need to think about who's going to manage it. Is it going to be a marketing manager, a content manager? Are you going to do it yourself? But that's really important to figure that out. Now, what you have to keep in mind about content is that you have to be nimble with your planning, because good content ebbs and flows with where we are in the world and where your company is at and what your objectives are. So you have to be able to react in a minute to something that changes in your environment, or a trend, or maybe something that happens in your organization. You have to be nimble. You cannot have a plan so tightly held in authorizations to do what you want to do, or that's just going to backfire on you. So with that, we do something called what I call guardrails. And we'll talk about guardrails a little bit later, but those are the sort of the The lane you can let your content manager stay in. And if they get close to an edge or close to a guardrail, that's when you think about maybe escalating or getting some more feedback on your content. But a good content strategy should be able to, a strategist should be able to understand your brand well enough that they can work within the parameters or the guardrails that you set for them. So they're not constantly having to beg you for approval, because that just means you're slow-mo and you're not going to be able to capitalize on particular opportunities. We also want to think about trends and what's going on in the world around us, so we can always make sure if something trendy or something newsworthy is happening, that we can contribute to that conversation. And then finally, how do we then take all of this and make sure that where our content is going to align in that overall buyer's journey, and see if we have any holes within that buyer's journey. So that's kind of how you bucket the planning. I want to show you a theory called TECO marketing. And TECO marketing is just a way of thinking. And what you do is you organize your content and your thoughts into thinking. So you're going to strategize, thinking, brain power, engaging. Are we engaging with the audience, creating the content, and then optimizing what you have? So think, meaning, what am I going to say? How am I going to engage with my customers? I'm going to create, how am I going to get this work done? And then once I have all of this piece of content and it's in the works, how do I make sure it's working well? So just sort of think about that. We aren't just going to create content to create content. It has to be very strategic and thoughtful and measurable. So there's 3 steps that I typically follow in creating a content plan. The first thing, and this goes beyond figuring out who's going to do the work, because trust me, that's the biggest thing. Content takes a lot of time and effort. And dedicated people generally are your best bet. But I know that some of you are not going to have dedicated people to do this. Maybe you don't have the resources to outsource. So the first thing we think about, once we have the people in place who's going to do the work, what type of content do we want? The second thing we're going to think about is, now that we know what type of content we want and we've got good messaging around it, which channels will we use? Will we use a social media channel? Will the content come from a spokesperson for the organization? Will we use the news media? Will we put it on our website or some other promotion? So which channel? Channel meaning, how are you going to deliver that message? And then finally, what's really important is coming up with a way to manage your content, scheduling it out if at all possible, automating it and tracking it if you can. So those are the 3 steps that I've used that I find really helpful, and hopefully you will as well. So when you think about the types of content, I organize my content strategy around target audiences, around what I want to accomplish with that particular, what is my goal? Again, if you go back to the buyer's journey, am I just getting eyeballs? Am I trying to fulfill a need? Am I trying to make a sale? Know what your objective is. What do you want to accomplish at the end of the day with, all the time and effort you're going to put into creating or curating this piece of content? Are there particular products or services that this content aligns to? Can you execute on it or not? Maybe you have to prioritize because there's only so much time and money that we know, and also so much mind share that you're going to get from your target audience. And then finally, is it measurable? So I have just an example here of a spreadsheet that I've actually done in my own job a while ago based on products. So what I did in this case was I took the product, the type of objective I had, and in this case I had several different products. I think I had maybe 7 or 8 very distinct product lines in this organization, and then I would look at where they are in the buyer's journey, and depend on the type of content I was creating. I would go, yeah, that works for this product. No, that doesn't work for that product. And some of this is going to vary by your organization. So in some cases, in this particular example, I worked in a business-to-business and a business-to-business to consumer sales channels. So if I was speaking directly to a consumer, say for example, in this particular case, we sold identity theft insurance to consumers, but we sold them through financial institutions. If I was creating a business-to-business piece of content in a conversation that I was going to have with a decision maker at the financial institution, whether or not they would buy my product, I might do something very different. Like I would have return on investment content for that product. How many consumers are buying it? High level information for that decision maker to say, yep, I want to do business with you, or no, I won't, or move, or tell me more. Whereas if I was taking that same product and I've already sold it through the financial institution and they say, yeah, sign me up for your identity theft solution, now I have to find ways to reach that consumer. And in that case, my content's going to be very different. It's not going to be about return on investment for the organization that's buying my product. My content is going to be, why do I need identity theft insurance? And what value is that going to be for me as a consumer? What happens if I get my Social Security ripped off or somebody hacks into my accounts? What value does your solution provide me? So certainly, as a consumer, that's a very different type of message than you might have when you're talking to a decision maker at a financial institution. So this is just one way that I've organized thinking around content types. So think about everything we've learned about in this course. So many different types of promotion, so many different types of communication channels and ways to reach customers and content types and messages. And my gosh, I don't know how you remember it all. It's a lot. And this is just promotions management. We haven't even talked about pricing or anything like that, or product design. So content type is all of the things we've been talking about in this class thus far. A content type could be a social post, an Instagram post, a Facebook post, a tweet. It could be a podcast or a video, a how-to video, or maybe a video of somebody using your product. Could be as simple as email communications. But what I want to really have you think about when it relates to the type of content that you're creating for your different products and your different target audiences is that content type is one thing, but always remember that the messaging and the marketing overall holistically is the key. It's not the channel, it's not the type. You have to have that message and that story so tightly organized, so tightly communicated that your target audience is going to go get it, want it. So even though we're talking about types of content and creating content and curating it, I always want you to keep in mind that at the end of the day, it comes down to how good the message is, and does that message resonate with your audience, and are they going to take action and buy our stuff or love us? So that's what I want you to remember. So in my career, in content marketing, I'd say is probably about 10 years old. It used to be a buzzword when I first started working in it. Now everybody does it because everything's digital, or most everything is digital. So in this case, when I was working through content for a fairly large organization and building a team and developing strategies, there's three things that I always had to remember. Do I want to build it? Do I want to buy it? Or do I want to borrow it? And these are Dr. G's 3 B's of content creation. Yes, that is really corny, and yes, I did make that up, but that's what I call it. Dr. G's 3 B's of content creation. So remember that for your knowledge checks. So the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, do I need to build this content myself? Meaning, am I going to create the story? You've all done great work on building stories, great copywriting, adding imagery, deciding, is this better for a digital post? Is this a story? Am I for an Instagram story? Am I going to create a whole podcast around this topic? I think I may have told you the story about my son who's done a podcast only on chicken sandwiches. So you have to decide, are you going to build your content around chicken sandwiches? And is it worth your time and effort to do that? So building it yourself is one option. The other option is buying content. Now, when I worked for Deluxe Corporation, and we did a lot of content marketing because we had so many various types of products. We had different audiences. Sometimes we were selling to a financial institution. Other times we were selling directly to the consumer. But we had so many different messages and content to create for these various products that I would often work with my content managers to buy content. And in this case, what I mean by buying content is I hired copywriters, freelancers, ghostwriters to create stories around. In some cases, we had certain salespeople or executives that we used to tell our story. We would have ghostwriters write their blogs, help them with their podcasts, create tweets for them. So it would take us a lot of time and energy for all of these people we had within our organization to build that ourselves. So it was far more cost effective for us to buy it or have somebody create that content for us. And there's lots of really amazing content agencies out there, copywriters, freelancers, that can take some of that burden off of you. The one thing that's really important when you're buying content and somebody's creating it for you, they have to understand the voice and the message and the brand. They need to be an extension of who you are as an organization. So that's an important concept around buying it or partnering with somebody. The third thing, which I call borrow, the last B of the Dr. G's 3 B's of content creation, borrow. Borrow is my word because I wanted to have the 3 B's, but in the content world, this is called content curation. And I want you to think about curating content. Think about yourself as a consumer in your own context. And you're surfing the web and you're reading your Instagram stories, maybe you're looking at some Facebook stuff, you come across a video you really like. You're going to share that video with someone else. Maybe, if you're really digging it. That would be curating content. You as a consumer have taken some other's piece of content that someone else created it. You either put a little note on it like, hey, watch this, it's super cool. Or can you believe somebody said this? And you pass that along. That is what we call content curation. And content curation is something that's really important for us as organizations because sometimes borrowing someone else's work lends credibility to your own message. Meaning, we as marketers can get really salesy sometimes. And if all we do is talk about our own products or how we solve needs for customers, people start to, they're selling crap again. But if you can curate someone else's work and they set the stage of a problem or a need, or maybe it helps their message aligns so well to your brand, you can leverage that content and share it. And it's as great, if not better, as creating it yourself. So those are the 3 types of content creation I want you to think about as you're building your own integrated marketing communications plan with your content strategy. So let's look at some types of content. What's really important as you look to your target audience, and we've spent a lot of time creating stories and talking about the importance of copywriting and messaging and imagery. All of those things are really great. But one of the things that is super important is that your content has to have some value to the person who consumes it. And that oftentimes what we do is not just messaging, visuals, etc. We might try to engage emotion, like you've worked on in your projects and your activities we've done in class. Strike fear, don't like that emotion. Strike, curiosity or passion, some sort of emotion within your content. Make it useful. Give them a how-to or something that they find of value. Or maybe it's just pure entertainment, because don't we all know that we need to be entertained these days? We're hearing so many negative messages, scary, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And those are all emotions, but let's hear something positive for a change, or just show me something light. So there's different ways that we can create content beyond what you might be thinking top of mind. Yeah, I'm going to do my Instagram posts every 3 days, and I'm going to do a little Facebook ad here. Maybe I'm going to tweet a bit. Maybe I'm going to, do my podcast. But what about thinking of something unique, like making a game out of something? Or capitalizing on some software or widgets that you might have, spin the wheel, or other things like that. So if you can get the consumer somehow to engage with your content is going to be more memorable and valuable to them. So that is just one thing to think about. Another thing I want you to think about is trends. So trends are points in time that we can use to help send a message. So I'm going to just go through some quick trends here. Here's some content. This one lives. This is probably a piece of clickbait that you might find. This one happened to be on CNN. We tasted the plant-based ice cream and happily report it's delicious. So who's behind this content? This content is not talking about a specific product. It is talking about the plant-based trend with food. So if you were to click on this bait, this will probably take you to some sort of product page, or maybe they'll warm you up a little bit more through the information search. But this is a way that you can capitalize on a trend if you happen to be in the plant-based business or the food business, and leverage your message in a way that isn't just purely selling. Popeyes has blessed us with a boozy pie to pair with the returned chicken sandwich. So if you remember, Popeyes had a run on chicken sandwiches. It was all the rage. Everybody had the Popeyes chicken, and you had to wait in line. It was the best PR tactic ever. I know Popeyes has figured out supply chain. They probably could have had enough chicken sandwiches for everybody who stood in line, but that was one of their experiential tactics to get people to notice them. So with that, they're taking this, let's put a little boozy pie with this. So there's just another trend. They're hopping on the Popeye trend. Then you've got Justin Bieber, and he thinks that the Popeyes chicken sandwich is not worth the hype. So maybe if you were Wendy's or KFC, you might think, yeah, maybe Bieber doesn't like it, so I'm going to put a little something there out there for my content in that. The hype isn't all that. So just think about These are examples of how you can use trends or curate other people's content or use a trend to create your own content that could be newsworthy, that could be, not just about selling your stuff. But what I need you to remember, so important, is make sure that the trend is on point with your brand. So don't be just yakking about the COVID virus or pandemic as it relates to your brand. Is it newsworthy? Yeah. Maybe you have something to say about it. Maybe, unfortunately, you want to let people know you care. That's fine. But be careful in how you mix trends and make sure that whatever you say is on point to your brand. Don't just be out there hanging your hat on something that everybody else is doing. Keep it fresh. So there's points in time where your product or a trend could be newsworthy, or you could take advantage of that. So say, for example, Oreos has a million different types of cookies, and we all kind of wonder what kind of cookie is going to be next. And in my classes, when we do the hot or not trends every day, I do a lot of Oreo cookies and get your feedback on whether you think it's cool or not. And if you recall that we watched the Supreme video on the launch of the Supreme collaboration Oreo Red Velvet cookie, I traded for $90,000 for one of those little babies. That was kind of a piece of information that is sort of trendy. So in Oreo's case, what they could do is, maybe a contest or something interactive. And what flavor would you like to see? Or what do you think about our cookie trading for $90,000? Isn't that kind of ridiculous? So there's ways to keep content fresh and engaging. Trader Joe's desserts for your Thanksgiving table. So if you're lucky enough to get a product placement, and Trader Joe's worked obviously with Chowhound to write a report on what are the best things for the Thanksgiving table that you can bring from Trader Joe's, that's a really good piece of content. Another thing is, I just pulled this one off the website, Dixie's website, the little, they did a National Dog Day, and it was really cute. So they had this little picture of this dog with a little bandana for Dixie, and then all of the students started posting their own dogs with little Dixie gear. It was a beautiful piece of content and engaging with the customer in a point in time where it's National Dog Day. Let's do something fun. So keep it fresh. Make sure that you're relevant. Find touch points that matter to your audience. So I've got a couple here. If you think about, content as being an ongoing relationship, an ongoing story that you have with your target audience, conversational. So I took this there. You can't really see here. I've got this is from the Calm app, and they did an Instagram story that had no words on it, but it was just the ocean, sounds. And I thought, that's a really cool way to engage with your audience. If you looked at it, and you really engaged with, what they're about is, they didn't, about the emotion around just being calm. And this was just from the other day. So, we all are in a state right now where we're a little bit anxious. I thought that was a really clever way to create a piece of content. No words, just gonna calm you. There's other things out here you've always seen, what are your favorite meals for Monday? Or quick tips on, 5 ingredients or less. So if you're a foodie or if you're a cook, those types of things would be great engaging content. I got this little message here from Nike, and I'm one of Nike's customers, and they do this thing where we're going to reward you for running. So in their app, they're talking about how you're going to get reward points, not just for buying their stuff, but for engaging in an activity that aligns with their product. Now, how clever is that? Because, at the end of the day, the more you run, the more shoes you burn, but they're really not just selling the shoes. They're talking about the activity that's important to their target audience. So make sure that what you're talking about is relevant. And you don't always have to put the picture of your product out there. That's boring. Wah, wah. Sorry. Okay, I talked in the beginning about guardrails. Now remember, when you're managing content, if you're the CEO of your own organization and you have this, you maybe have 2 to 5 employees, you're going to be in charge of your own content. But think about working for an organization that has maybe 100 people or 1,000 people, or maybe you're a Fortune 500 or a Fortune 50, like some of the companies I've worked for. You can't control every piece of content. You have to create a lane for your content marketers to stay in and establish guardrails. And that's something you're going to do when you're working on your brand. You're going to have very clear established guardrails of you can say this, you can't say this, we stay within these topics. You come up with a voice that you're going to use, and then you also have an escalation process so that if something were to happen, or if there were a question on whether content fits or not with the brand, how do you quickly get that, run up the food chain, bless it, and come back down and post? So a guardrail is your internal gut check. So as you're creating content, I always want you, if you've had my ethics class, there's things you have to do as a marketer, you always have to do. You have to be able to believe in it, take a gut check, see if it feels okay to you, and look your mother in the eye and say, my mom would be okay if I posted this. You're going to be okay if you go through that little minimum gut check. If something's feeling funky to you, follow your gut and either don't do it or talk to somebody else about it or get approval if you're in a company with a decision maker. So here are some icky examples of content gone wrong. So there's, my things are sort of bleeding together. We had one here, the peachy had peach shape for your suicidal hair. Yeah, we have bad hair days. I'm probably having one now. But you don't call your hair suicidal. Bad. That would go outside of a guardrail. That should catch your gut. No, not right. Gucci, I know I've showed this in other things. Gucci had some sweaters that resembled blackface. And very, very inappropriate marketing. I do not know what they were thinking. I do not know how that passed a gut check. But something like that. I've got this gentleman here that don't say maybe if you want to say no. Probably an okay message, but the thing is, you really have to make sure that message is aligned to your brand. Are you going to be political or not? If political is part of your brand voice, political might be okay. But you need to make sure that politics or religion or any other topic that might get some people not feeling so good about it, you may want to steer clear of those. So set your guardrails. Now I'm going to talk about organizing content. Oh, this is a big deal. Organizing content. The first thing you're going to do, you're going to create a framework. You're going to have a living, breathing document. You're going to categorize your content. You're going to manage it. You're going to be organic, meaning you're not going to just sell stuff. And then you're going to track every piece of content you have. So these are the 6 things I want you to think about. And so there's lots of different ways you can create a format to manage your content. There is no one right way. There are a lot of companies out there who are going to try to sell you fancy pants software. We are going to be able to track and measure and get you to think about every single piece of content you have. I've tried a lot of those. I spent a lot of money. For myself, there's 2 things that I've worked with that have been easy to manage, for not myself, just myself, but for other people in my organization. And these are examples of those I've used. The simple spreadsheet. Every piece of content you have goes on a spreadsheet, and you log what the objective is, you log where you placed it, you log the key message, you log how many people have consumed it, all of those things. Sure, you can do this in Google Analytics, will give you some of this, but let me tell you, when you're managing thousands of pieces of content and you want to know what's going to work and what's not going to work, and who's on first and who's creating the content and who might own it and what the target audience is, it's way beyond Google Analytics. And I'm not saying that you have to go to this length. What I'm saying is that if true content marketing is part of your overall business strategy, you have to be nimble enough to be able to make quick decisions and see everything in one place. So I've done spreadsheets, I have done calendars, and just put where content is going out and where it is, and then logging on there how many hits I got. I've used other systems like social media systems, Google Analytics. All of those things are great, but find a format that you can manage. And it's just going to be your preference. Here's another piece of content that I've used in the past. You've got different messages. I've got the link, the channel it went through, the category, when it was released. This was for an event. When you're putting on an event, you have hundreds and hundreds of messages and links, and being able to organize that content in a way that you can go back and analyze is really important. The other thing I want to say about content is that there are rules and regulations around this stuff. I've worked for companies that were publicly traded, and we had to keep every piece of content we did, whether that was a tweet, a post, a brochure, a social media post, a TV commercial, for 7 years. So when I'm saying it's really important to log your content, if somebody comes back to you, I don't know, 3-4 years from now and says, hey, remember when you did that really obnoxious Gucci sweater post? Not liking it. You should be able to go back, find that content, and be able to react quickly. So my point here is not that there's a million ways of doing this, because there are. You have to find a way that's going to work for you, and you have to keep it. Keep your content manageable. So there's a lot of stuff. I know I'm yakking longer than I should, like I always do. But for your marketing plan that you're creating for your semester project, part of it is creating a integrated marketing plan. And I want you to think about not only your high-level promotions, but I want you to think about if you're doing any sort of content, whether it's curation, meaning somebody else's work that you're sharing, or saying, I like this on behalf of your company, along with your other pieces of marketing, I want you to thoughtfully think about how you are going to manage that. I have a couple of templates for you that you can use, or you can say these are gross, I don't like them. I'm not tied to any of this. I'm just trying to give you some tools that I've used that have worked for me, and they may or may not work for you. That's just fine. So you do not have to use the tools that I have loaded in Canvas, but one of the things you're going to have to do for your semester project is create some sort of content template for your marketing plan. A calendar. It's going to be high level. You're not going to have to go into the detail like I showed you with mine. That probably freaked you out because there were like hundreds and hundreds of things. Yeah, that's not for you. But you're going to keep it high level. But so when you're pulling your plan together, go and take a look at these tools, and you're going to create a plan for your company, a high level integrated marketing communication plan that is calendarized. So that is That is the plan. Okay, one more topic. You thought you were done with me, haha. I want to show you that this isn't just me blowing smoke. This is really important. So let's look at a few companies. Red Bull. Red Bull has a content plan. They post their content where their audience is most active, and that's based on measuring what they've done in the past. They reuse video content that they create on lots of different channels. So this is something important to remember. When you create a piece of content, you want to be able to use that as many channels as you can. It's not just about creating a Facebook post. It's about how do you create a compelling piece of content and get that out to as many eyeballs as possible. And you want it to feel and look authentic. You want it to come from your own voice. So I have here Red Bull's content plan, how many times they post a week, where they, on average, what do they do, best practices. So know that when you're serious about content, good companies will create a strategy around how many times they post, why they're going to post, where the content that they're messaging, how it aligns to their target audiences, etc. We have Disneyland. Now Disneyland's content is all around fear of missing out. So when you're at the park, they use a lot of different content strategies to engage with you while you're there, to help you navigate, know where things are going on, know where the fun is, where's the best time to hop in line. And they do about 5 posts a day. They do a lot of apps, social media, but know that again, there is a concerted effort, a strategy around this. And then finally, Whole Foods. Now Whole Foods, they've got an interesting content strategy. And their content strategy is we're only going to post when there's something newsworthy. We are not going to establish a 2 or 3 or 5 posts a week. We're only going to post when it's meaningful information. So you might see them post less or develop less content, but it's going to be meaningful. So I just wanted to show you that this whole content strategy just isn't about me and my ideas. It's about some of the best marketers in the world use these strategies. So that's what I have for you today. It was a lot of information. We talked about the types of content, whether you're going to build, borrow, buy, content managers, how you organize it, making sure that the content you create is on point with your brand. We talked a little bit of some fun ideas about what you can think about in building your content. So this is all to help you better understand how to pull your integrated marketing communication plan together for your organization. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. You can text me, call me, email me. Come to my virtual office hours, which are Tuesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. to noon. I always have my Zoom open. You can pop in, pop out, ask a question. But I'm here to help you. I want to let you know that the next video is going to be a refresher on the semester project. There's been so much information you've learned. It's been so much fun seeing your work and seeing all of your great ideas come to life. It just gives me such great energy. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and I miss you all. I can't wait to see you again. Have a fantastic day.